Okay, I'm going to get us started. Thanks everyone for joining. My name's Spencer. I'm the fellowship manager in Boston, and we're so happy to have you on this webinar today. So just a brief overview of the agenda. Randy's going to give us just a brief overview of Activate as a whole, then I'll dive into more of the Boston community specifics. And then we're going to try to focus most of this on the 5 Boston fellows that we have joining us and to give you the maximum amount of time to get your questions answered. Just keep admitting people. All right, let's get started. Randy?
Cool, thanks. So first I wanted to kind of ground us all in what Activate is for anyone who might not be fully aware. So Activate is a nonprofit that is operational across the US, and we mainly try to help inventors take their technological innovations and convert those into products and try to give them the time and resources so that they can find product market fit and go off to be huge and impactful companies. So the way we do that is by doing 2-year entrepreneurial fellowships. So first we're trying to provide the money and mentorship that would be necessary to kind of get off the ground. So that's a couple years of stipend, 100K in R&D funds, and at least 100K in early flexible capital. We can only say 100K right now, but say, for example, this year, it was 400K for all of the new cohort members. We also provide a lot of educational opportunities, whether that's bringing people in to speak, as well as giving kind of a mini MBA curriculum all about entrepreneurship. And last but definitely not least is the kind of like the community aspect. That's something that is usually touted as the best part of this process, is that you get to work with other entrepreneurs and not have it be such a lonely journey if you're a CEO of a startup. Yeah, so next slide. We, within Activate, we operate out of 4 locations. One is virtual or mostly virtual, and that's anywhere. Then we have 3 in-person ones. And today we're mostly talking about Boston and talking about how the Activate Fellowship is different here versus other places. So to start us off, we can kind of intro who's here and like what the team looks like. So first off, I'll give a little slight introduction. As MD, I'm mostly in charge of setting the vision for Boston, as well as providing mentorship to all the fellows. My background is in chemical engineering. I basically had a startup that was around flexible sensor arrays for consumer electronics, and then I eventually moved to the business side of things, becoming a market research consultant, then going to business school and doing some time in venture capital before coming into Activate. And now I'll pass off to Spencer to do an introduction.
Hi everyone, I'm Spencer. I'm the fellowship manager for those of you that joined after we got started. Basically, that means I'm here to help plug you into the resources and get the most out of our fellowship program and help strategize to give you the most useful experience we can in the 2 years. My background is I studied policy. I actually started last November as the fellowship associate and just took on this role this summer, which is why we have a hiring fellowship associate position right now. But the hope is that we will have a full Boston site team by the time that you are all starting in Cohort 2023. And then we also have Karen Krauss-Benkel, or KK, on the call as well to introduce herself.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Karen Krauss-Benkel. I have a background in, I've got a bachelor's of science from Cornell University in agrobioengineering. My master's is from Baxton. I specialize in entrepreneurship. And here as a senior partnership manager, I support the community building out dual use commercial and defense relationships, both with deep tech investors, business mentors, and corporates who are all investing in a variety of deep technologies. And my role is to support the fellows with their collisions and mentoring to help them advance their ventures. Thank you.
And then I also just want to highlight, we do have some staff located in Boston. So, if you make it into the cohort, you'll see them around. So Amy Rose is our executive managing director. She launched the Boston site herself and served as Boston managing director for 2 years. And then Steve Trans, our VP of finance, and he has a background in contracts and other finance work that he's helped many fellows with as well. So we have a wide range of expertise here. And then moving on to what's unique about the Boston community. Since we are a physical site, we are able to do in-person local programming every other Thursday. So on Thursdays, we have a full day of learning and connection. We start with lunch, then we go into programming, which takes on many different forms. And we're able to do a lot of different one-on-one collisions with VIP guests in specific topic workshops, such as IP roundtables, government funding roundtables, lab space workshops. And then we also like to kick off or end every local Thursday programming with a happy hour in the office. And again, local programming can take on many forms. We've done things such as founders talks and hearing from serial entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are a few years ahead of our own fellows. We've done fundraising pitch practices. We've opened it up to just executive problem solving where fellows can take the time to hear from one another. And then we've also done specific topics like business development, and we'll be doing a hiring workshop soon. And, we really like to tap into the Boston ecosystem. So we recently had a state resources day with places like Mass CEC and Mass Ventures. We frequently have guests who have held positions like former ARPA-E directors or leading new government quasi-funds. And we really like to bring in dual use investors so that we're able to expand our impact in the government sector as well. Outside of local programming, you'll have monthly or bi-weekly check-ins with Randy, and then all Activate staff also offer office hours, so you'll be able to check in with anyone on the Activate team about their expertise. And then we also have the unique function of our leadership council. So these are people who are experts in their field and who have had experiences exactly the same as yours, able to offer their time a few times a month for you. And then another aspect of the fellowship is your quarterly advisory board meetings. So these are starting out just with Activate staff, and then you can invite advisors and other team members to it, but they really allow you to take a breath each quarter and recap what you've done and where you need to go and get advice from us. And then outside of all of those fellowship requirements, we frequently have community events. So we've had beach days, we've had trivia nights, we've gone to beer gardens, we are going to the rodeo next in 2 weeks. So we really try to just engage as much as we can. Fellows go climbing together every Tuesday, and then we also have a group that does the Harvard Stadium stairs every Sunday. So again, moving on to what makes Boston unique, we're at the heart of the innovation ecosystem in Kendall Square. We're located at the CIC, so we also are tapped into industry partners with offices here. They have a venture cafe, they have really frequent programming for entrepreneurs, and we're also within walking distance to Lab Central and the Engine. And some of the fellows on the call today can talk about their experiences at this space. But we have a really strong partnership with the Engine, and most fellows tend to use their 100K R&D funds for lab space there. And again, since we've been here since 2019, we enjoy a really strong relationship with our industry partners. We have a strong connection to MIT Lincoln Laboratories. So when Boston was launched, we were launched with some fellows embedded there. And now today, that was through DARPA funding. And now today, fellows that are embedded or are not can also enjoy the resources and access to small business support there. And KK will further talk about that, but just ending this too with the idea that unlike other communities, we don't have a current imperative restricting project types. So we've had fellows in a wide array of sectors, and we're really looking forward to supporting more diverse product types and applicants as well. So, if you are thinking about other communities, you can also think about your fit in Boston, and just really stressing that if you want to live here, if you want to research here and be connected to our ecosystem, you don't need to have a certain project type to apply. So that's my spiel about Boston. KK, I know you want to talk a little bit more about our past relationships with Lincoln Labs and then our dual use and prior dual use imperatives as well.
Sure, I'd be happy to. This Boston was launched with support from DARPA and philanthropic entities, and part of that was to bring together the power of MIT Lincoln Laboratory, their small business office, in the fellowship so that we can provide technical mentorship and facility space to our fellows who believe that technology capability can help advance them. And so MIT Lincoln Laboratory, it is a defense laboratory, but they actually work on a whole host of technologies and market applications areas beyond just defense. And so they work on climate research as it applies for national security. They've got efforts in synthetic bio, and also then, of course, all the traditional areas of defense, surveillance, advanced materials, and they have a space R&D. So it's a wonderful collaborative partnership. And many of our fellows who pursue SBIRs or STTRs can collaborate with MIT Lincoln on those applications. And I think it helps with their increasing their win rate. Otherwise, other partnerships that we have here that are unique than others, we've got a really strong support from many large corporate entities such as BASF, Baxter. There's also Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. And so this is, the Boston area is it's an older community. It's got a lot of deep tech with an emphasis on bio and other deep tech areas. Is there any other questions you want me to address, Spencer, or did I cover that?
No, that was great. Thanks. And then also just a reminder to everyone that they can please feel free to drop questions in the chat throughout this as well. I think we are speeding through it a little bit, but so just wanted to pause here and go over the application timeline. So applications are currently open until the end of October. From there, once we receive your application, we'll go through our internal and external reviews. So internally, we'll be reviewing until the end of the year, and we'll also get insight from external subject matter experts as well to help really understand and discuss the potential of your applications and get subject matter expertise that we might not have so that we're fairly and fully evaluating your applications. Interviews will take place in January and February. These will be phone interviews, and they'll take place for about 2 months or so until we announce those finalists. Once we announce finalists, we'll have our finalist week, and then selections will be announced in March, and then typically the fellowship will start June 1st. And so moving on to the next section, again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're going to allow our fellows that have joined us today to give about a 1 to 2 minute introduction each about themselves, their companies, their experience with the application, and what they've accomplished during the fellowship so far, or any special considerations about their application or perspective that they can touch on. So Floris, would you like to kick us off?
Of course, pleasure. My name is Floris Engelhardt, co-founder and CEO of Kano Therapeutics. We make replacement parts for the human genome, meaning we have a microbial fermentation approach to make single-stranded DNA, basically DNA that is used then in genetic medicines. And what I have accomplished throughout the past 1.5 years, I'm now in my second year, cohort 2021, is that when I came on in around June, July last year, there was no existing company. I was still a postdoc at MIT. I left MIT postdoc. We incorporated the company in end of last year, November, December, using really supported by the Activate Fellowship money. We started raising money February, March. We closed our first round, a couple of million, led by the Engine in May. And we moved into Lab Central, won a golden ticket, so sponsored lab bench from Roche through that, and then just hired 2 people. I think that's kind of where we are now. We're now a team of 4 people full-time, and then extra 4 people part-time. So actually just like currently managing, I think about like total number of 8 people that I have there. And we're ready to roll. It's been a pleasure to be part of this community.
Thanks, Floris. Holden, you want to give an introduction?
Hi, everyone. I'm one of the co-founders and CTO of Osmosis. So there's also another Activates fellow, Francesco Benedetti, who is who's in the same cohort as me, 2021, and he's the CEO of Osmosis. So Activate has been really, the mentorship and the help that we've gotten from Activate has really helped us a lot personally and also in developing and growing the company. When we first applied for Activate back in, I think, October 2020, the company was not incorporated. We were just a couple of people with an idea. And since then, we've been able to raise $3 million of venture funding. We've been able to win grants in over $1 million, and now we have 12 people in the company. So we've really gotten a lot of support and really helpful mentorship from the program. Looking forward to your questions.
Thanks, Holden. Peter?
Hey everybody, my name is Peter Goddard. I'm the founder and CEO of Found Energy. We're trying to tackle the problems around renewable energy transportation using aluminum as an energy carrier, basically using the aluminum supply chain as a backbone for transferring a very large amount of energy. We have a technology that came from my PhD work at MIT to rapidly corrode aluminum with water to produce hydrogen. So it's basically a way of storing hydrogen without actually storing hydrogen. You can produce it on demand. And yeah, I mean, I came into, I'm a 2022 fellow, so this is my first year. Came in, I had incorporated the company, but absolutely did not know what I was doing. And in just the last couple of months, you know, I've learned basically everything I know about entrepreneurship from Activate. It's been amazing. They have this professional development budget, which I've been using and abusing. I've traveled around the world, talking to customers. Activate comes with some funding, and I was able to use that funding to leverage raising some additional funds, a combination of grants and dilutive funding from venture capitalists and angels. And we expanded our team to 5 full-time. We moved into our own lab space in Charlestown. Happy to answer questions around some more non-standard ways of getting lab and machine shop access, because some of the more standard approaches are a little bit expensive. So we've had to get crafty there, and Activate's been very supportive of that. So yeah, pleasure to meet everybody and look forward to the questions.
Thanks, Peter. All right, Carlos?
Hey everyone, my name is Carlos Navarro. I'm a member of this year's Cohort 2022, and I'm the co-founder of Closed Composites, a company that's striving to close the carbon fiber recycling loop with a novel recycling technology, allowing us to recover high quality carbon fiber weaves for continued reuse and remanufacture. So I stumbled across Activate in my email inbox, and I took the leap of applying because I saw a commercialization opportunity with my PhD research. I was in my last year of my PhD when I applied. And what's unique about Activate that Peter touched on is that it does have an emphasis on the scientist as an individual and really wanting to give them a complementary entrepreneurial skill set that through weekly courses that I immensely appreciate, because otherwise I would not have this sort of vernacular that that I need to navigate this space to do the kind of impact that I want to do with my PhD research, to really bring it to scale and bring the benefits of this sort of technology outside of the lab. So I'm at a secure lab space out in the Boston area. I relocated from Los Angeles, so a big coast to coast move. If you have any questions about that, Activate has a nice relocation stipend that that helped make that process a lot easier. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. We're going to be waiting on Augie for a minute, so I'm just going to start pinning all of our fellows right now, and we can get started with questions if anyone wants to go. I do want to let you know, if you want to ask live questions, that will be a little bit easier for us, but we will be monitoring the chat as well if you don't want to ask them out loud. Yeah, Linda.
What made you go to the Boston fellow instead of Berkeley or New York?
I think that was was it directed to, might have been directed to me, but I applied to the New York cohort. The Activate, each of the communities has a particular emphasis within certain domains of technology. And for me, they had a much better fit for the composites, thermoset composites and carbon fiber ecosystem in Boston. So, so I'm quite happy ending up in this city.
What about anyone else? Why would you choose Boston over Berkeley or New York?
Again, so the leveraging the in-person sort of resources of the Boston community has been the biggest benefit. Yeah, and I think folks can also apply to the Anywhere, the new Anywhere cohort, but I was also excited for a little bit of a move, a little bit of excitement.
Is it true that in the Boston community, there's more flexibility? Because at Berkeley, for instance, right, you have to be part of Lawrence Berkeley Lab. But is that true? I think that feels true. But maybe deactivate people, they know. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons for. I think there's more. You don't have to be part of a national lab. Depending on what your technology is. So there's, if you're not part of the lab, that you sort of get this, you can sort of go out and establish your own lab space, and you can get some funding from Activate to do that.
Yeah, and I can add from the Activate side a little that, yeah, that is one of the key differences between the different communities is kind of what, based off of where that money is coming from and like what imperatives that kind of drives the imperatives behind each community, right? In the past, we did have a microelectronics base imperative where those people would be embedded within MIT Lincoln Labs. So that was like one kind of key difference between the communities, but that was a small percentage versus everyone else, which had a full range of flexibility in terms of the types of technologies they could be pursuing. And now we don't have that limitation. So all of the fellows within Boston will have can be covering anything within hard tech. And yes, the Berkeley one needs to be connected to Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and Anywhere is also open, but that one is virtual. New York is mostly focused on carbon tech. And if you want to learn more about that, they have a webinar at 4 o'clock.
Thanks, Randy. All right, let's move on. Edgar.
Hi, thank you everybody for the time. I have a question regarding eligibility and specifically the equity funding being raised. If I understand well, there's a cap of 2 million in equity funding. So we have some like the phase 1 from SBIR, NSF, that I understand that doesn't go towards that since it's non-dilutive. But on the equity side, we have slightly above the 2 million. We have like 2.2, 2.3. Is the 2 million a hard cap, or since it's around the ballpark, could be, could be looked over and consider the application?
That's a good question. So I would say usually we apply the $2 million cap to whenever you apply. And so like it depends on if that's already like cash in hand or if you're like raising now.
It's cash in hand.
Okay.
We raised last year.
Okay. So potentially there's like exceptions to it if you're pretty close, but you would have to kind of explain why like Activate would still be hugely impactful for you. The reason why we have that cap is so that we because we try to prioritize additionality, and if you've already kind of proven that you can raise money, then you don't then potentially you don't need us as much as somebody else who might not even have heard of VC before.
Got it.
Carla, I see that you're on the line. I don't know if you know for sure if we have a 2 million cap for, or if there might be flexibility if it's like 2.1, something like that. You're muted, can't hear you.
Carla's going to answer in the chat. Thanks.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you. And Randy, like from what I understood from you, it's, you know, there's a cap, but it depends. So I'll address it offline and I'll see what Carla mentions. But thank you.
Thanks, Nicker. Kanwar?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Really, thank you for this amazing panel and for doing a showcase on the Boston community. I know Karen talked about this briefly earlier, but I'm curious to learn more about the defense sponsors for the Boston community. I realize historically DARPA and IARPA and the Lincoln Labs have been supporters of fellows in the Boston community. Will that continue to be the case this year, especially for defense-related technologies? Thank you.
So I guess I'll take that one. We do have engagement. We have continued support from MIT Lincoln Laboratory, that's for sure. And we're currently working on solidifying our official sponsorship from the Department of Defense. We've got several proposals. We're caught up in a continuing resolution and contracting, as many are. So it's still to be determined. Like I said, we've got some proposals with specific branches of the military, like the Army Research Lab. We're just not quite sure where we fit in their funding allocation, if they're going to reallocate current year money or if it's going to be a new start. So this is the nail biting moment where we're not quite sure if the funding, how it might come through. But independent of a Department of Defense sponsorship for a specific fellow, we still have very robust relationships with defense innovation catalysts like industrial primes. We've got a strategic partnership with Raytheon, with Lockheed Martin. We've done work with Airbus. We have a new relationship with Northrop Grumman. All of them have either internal tech scouting, internal research and development groups that want to engage with our fellows, and they also have venture arms. And so the level of support and engagement you'll have will be consistent, but not quite sure what the color of money for funding your fellowship. Did that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. We do have a comment in the chat. Peter, if you wanted to talk about your experience finding lab space.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, our strategy was to spend the smallest amount of money possible per square foot. We also wanted some flexibility. A lot of the stuff we're doing, we're generating lots of hydrogen and we're doing that for over long periods of time. So we needed our own fume hood. And we were looking at places like Greentown Labs and the Engine, which are really fantastic. But we felt that the real value add of those places was actually some of the networking and some of the community building stuff, which Activate basically just completely took care of. And so then it came down for us being like, well, okay, really the value add then would be lab space, which is actually quite expensive. Like at the Engine, if you're not an Engine portfolio company, if you want your own fume hood, it's about like $6,000 per month. And so we ended up renting this 2,100 square foot place in Charlestown, bought a fume hood, and we're paying like $3,000 a month, like for everything. So that worked out really well. I think if we were doing things with more hazardous chemicals, we might not have an option, might have to do it at a place like Lab Central or the Engine or Greentown. But yeah, that's been really successful for us.
Zuri?
Hi, everybody. I hope I didn't cut in line. I think Esther had his hand up as well. My name is Zuri Chavers. I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland. My goal is to work in volumetric capture for digital asset creation. I know that's kind of a deviation from what everybody else is talking about. So I put my question in the chat. How do you guys base your decisions when it comes to your potential candidates? Do you guys focus on the development cycle, the team, the scientific acumen? Is there any potential area that you guys place more focus on when weeding out potential applicants?
I guess that's a me question. So yeah, we try to focus mostly on the team, and so that or on the applicant, I should say more specifically, and trying to get a good sense of what technology you've developed and what's your technical acumen in general, so that you can so we can see how well you will be able to adapt to whatever difficulties that may arise. And we also, so second to that would be the potential impact of what you're doing and of the vision. So we want that to generally be large, but so for that, we're looking at kind of like how groundbreaking is the technology, and how enabling is that for like the entire industry. But hopefully that answers your question. But we try to generally be open on like kind of the range of different industries, at least in Boston we do. And so when you're talking about biometric capture, that would be where I'll be looking at in terms of like, is there anything unique that's there, or is the unique factors on the digital asset creation part? We most likely would be trying to see, be more likely to back someone who's on the biometric capture side, just because of our focus on hard technologies. And that's where we think we are best suited to help. Let me know if that didn't fully answer your question.
No, that's helpful. I appreciate you, bro. Can you pronounce your Randy? How do you pronounce your real name?
My real name is Manafo.
Manafo, nice to meet you. Thank you for your answer.
Thanks, Suri. Rennie, there is a question in the chat, and then Brian.
Should I go or should I do
Brian. Yeah, Brian, go ahead. We're just having a little trouble hearing you.
Oh, no worries. Thanks all for taking the time. This is mostly to the fellows for, like people coming out of programs where they're doing things on their own, like finding co-founders. Like, did y'all, when you're applying, I know some people applied with the co-founder, so I know some people like found them after that. I guess like kind of y'all's like pathway to, building out your team. Like some of y'all mentioned you had like upwards of like 10 or more employees now. So like kind of how you guys navigated that. And then I guess when you were applying, like, did you talk about that at all? About like whether you were on your own or like whether you were like how you're trying to expand the team? Is that important? Thanks.
I think I can get that because I applied without having a co-founder. I applied without having a real clue of who could ever be my co-founder. And then throughout the time, started working with actually an MBA student, and then had a lot of discussions around, should I even take on someone with a business background as a co-founder, while we were all like very scientifically focused, and wouldn't it be better to just like search for a scientist? Tried to find a scientist for a long time, and then settled for the facts that this MBA student is the greatest person I could ever work with. And like Activate and really these discussions with other people and how they interact with their co-founders helped me to figure out that it's very much about the person that you work with. It's about like the team that you guys built. It's about how you complement each other. And that is what you have to be looking for. And there's a second question about like how important is it? Activate pushes very much for you to find a co-founder. They support you when you're a single founder, but I would have never thought that it is so hard to do this alone. You always think you can manage it, and then you read all these articles that tell you can manage it, and then you start working as a team and you realize how much better that is, because there will be a lot of annoying things coming up, and loading that onto like different shoulders is really relieving. Yeah.
Holden, you applied with the co-founder. Could you talk about that process?
Yeah, sorry, I was just answering a question in the chat. Yeah, so I applied with a co-founder, and someone basically he's also another scientist or engineer. We basically were collaborating on a project when we were in graduate school, and the project turned out to be the idea that we're trying to commercialize. Yeah, so it's definitely good to have a co-founder, so you can share responsibilities and don't have to do everything on your own. But I think yeah, Activate has, I think, good resources and sort of support network for it, helping you navigate that and finding a co-founder if you need one, and also workshops on sort of helping you develop your relationships, or and stuff like that with working with the co-founders and other people in the company. So.
I should state that like a good number of our fellows are solo founders for a while. And so, and some opt to remain as like the only founder and just have like a lot of employees. So it's mostly about building up that team eventually, but we try to provide an amount of resources to help people prioritize, like, okay, what are the most important things that they should be doing, so that if it is a team of one, how should they be managing their time, and then trying on our side to help as much as possible in terms of providing the right connections or something, and being like a BD person for them, for example. But yeah, for the most part, building up a team is a kind of value inflection point for sure.
Thanks. Josh?
Hi, I was wondering if you could go into some more depth about the industry focus areas for Boston. I'm under the impression that since there's a connection with a certain set of sponsors, there's more interest in topics that relate to those sponsors, that there's more interest in dual use or things that have military applications. But I just want to get a better sense of, what's most interesting in Boston, because I know you previously said it's a very wide open set of criteria.
Yeah. So yeah, in the past we had some of our funding come from DARPA, and that led to a greater focus on microelectronics. But now we don't have any particular limitations. Even if we were to get defense funding, it wouldn't necessarily be just to Boston. It could be centered at other locations as well. So therefore, we kind of are open to kind of take applicants wherever they are and select the best ones rather than ones that potentially align with our sponsors. I should say that we have a general inclination towards climate change. And so that will make it easier, or it'll make it easier to kind of take advantage of everything that Activate offers. But we have fellows that are only maybe tangentially related to climate. And I'm not sure if any fellows want to speak to that, but it can be, that's not fully necessary to take advantage of what we offer, and it's not what, I would say like just generally hard tech is how I would define what we're looking for nowadays.
Yeah, and Randy, if I could just add, Boston Fellows are funded by a wide range of sponsors. It's not just DARPA. Our fellows are sponsored by NSF, DOE, and philanthropic organizations. And so it's not Right now, we're pretty open because we have interest from many different agencies, which is very nice. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay. We do have a question in the chat about if you were ever afraid to fail at this fellowship or hitting brick walls. So if someone wants to talk about how they viewed the fellowship and achievements like that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Activate doesn't kick people out, in my understanding. Right. So it's not so we do have these Spencer was talking really about like all the things that regular meetings and things that are provided, like one-on-one meetings, community events, and quarterly meetings. So I guess in the quarterly meetings, they're meant to sort of for us to develop reports on our progress. But I would say that it's an open space for you to talk about the problems that you're going through, and it's a very supportive environment overall. No one's trying, it's not like people will get mad or anything if you don't meet some milestone that you set for yourself. It's really just a space for you to get the help that you need. So I don't know if that answers the question.
It's also great being in this, just in this ecosystem with such exciting folks that are also doing similarly, Herculean tasks that you're also undergoing. So when you feel like you've hit a brick wall, a lot of times someone else has already hit that and there's a way around it. So it's nice to realize that brick wall is paper thin or there's a ladder on the other side or something. A lot of times just by talking, you can find solutions that you may not have considered.
That's so true, Carlos. And I think, or you just hit the brick wall with someone together in a completely different company and you're like, oh yeah, let's just sit down, have a drink and just talk about how annoying this is. And that can already help.
Oh, and yeah, I can verify that we don't kick people out. For even if someone shuts down their companies, they remain a fellow. So they during the initial timeline, so people can try to figure out what their next steps would be.
We have a question in the chat. Do you help with technical recruiting for a particular domain or access to scientists or engineers?
I think the answer is here, Activate doesn't fish for you, it tells you how to fish. So you will need to do the job yourself. If you do technical recruiting, you are the best person to do that. However, there is a specific, I think, session that we went through, which goes over 3 weeks. So 3 times where we effectively talked about how to recruit efficiently, how to write job descriptions, and they even have an outside headhunter who offers a boot camp that you can sign up for free to then write your job description, figure out how to look on LinkedIn. So there is a lot of support about how to fish. But no, Randy will not go necessarily out there and try to find a microbiologist for me because that is, I really appreciate you, Randy, but I think that I'm better suited for that.
I'm not good at that. You don't want me doing it.
Yeah, Josh.
Could you talk some more about the hard tech focus requirement? I generally took that to mean there has to be a substantial hardware component or physical objects involved. Is that accurate?
For the most part, yes, but there are exceptions. So let me talk about kind of like the rationale why we have this eligibility criteria. So it's the idea that we want to help the people who aren't able to fundraise and or have to use a different mechanism for fundraising, because generally speaking, they are in a situation where it requires a lot more capital intensity early on. And in addition to that, they aren't able to do the iterative approach around product market fit that you can potentially do with if you're like an enterprise SaaS company. So with that, we think the resources that we provide are mostly around people who are developing hardware-based technologies that are based off of some kind of innovation. Though we've had finalists in the past that have not fit with that. We've had people who had a new algorithm for predicting technology improvements and technology adoption, and they were trying to sell that to R&D companies, and therefore had no viable venture capital pathway. We've had other people that have looked at satellite imagery to better predict wind and solar patterns for energy production. Like those types of things are more in the hard sciences side and therefore a fit. But if it's something that's, I would say that you shouldn't limit yourself in terms of thinking that if there is a hardware component, you should potentially ask us on a one-off basis around either by emailing us at apply@free.org or attending one of our office hours if you think that this is a borderline case and you want to have more clarification.
Thanks. Juan?
Hi. This might be maybe a little gauche of a question, but I was wondering, like, how is the funding structure for Activate, and what does a successful fellow at the end of the program bring to the program? Is there like a funding aspect, like a financing aspect to each of the fellows, like pathways, or is there some sort of like equity trade-off at some point during the fellowship?
Sure, I'll take that. And so there's no required equity trade-off or anything like that in terms of what we expect people to do during the fellowship or by the end of it. Yeah, we're expecting people in the ideal situation, they're getting to around the pilot stage by the end of the fellowship. But for the most part, how we define success is around the fellows understanding their market, understanding kind of like just what it takes to be an entrepreneur and moving forward and finding where they want to be within their companies and along their journeys. So we typically think of it as successful if we say, have a fellow who learns about their market and decides to just shut down the company. We feel like that is good because we've given them the chance to fully understand like what the parameters are, and hopefully they will be well suited for whatever their next venture would be. So in that way, we're really more about training people than about like company success. And yeah, so in that way, we don't really care that much about the success of the company as much. We want the fellows to be as successful as possible. And if they decide that to be their startup, then we want the startup to be as successful as possible. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
We have a question in the chat. Floris and Holton, if you want to talk about where you got your follow-on funding or how you went about the funding process.
Is that question regarding the fellowship funding or the follow-up funding that we raised?
Diluted funding, I believe.
Oh. How did we get the dilutive funding? So throughout the first 6 months of the fellowship, but already before, I created a list of about Excel sheet with about 70 different potential venture capital companies, with ranking them by focus on the biotech market, the check size that they put into companies, and then started to see if I have the option to get friendly connections with them. I had a conversation with people in these funds and figured out if I like these people. And then from that 70 different names and funds, we took about 10 that we actually were super interested in. And we built a strategy of how to reach out once we started raising in February. And then so we basically started reaching out to them and figured out how we can build, if we build a syndicate, how much money they actually would put in, and if we can convert them into just like investors on our cap table. That's how we went about it.
Yeah, we did something similar in terms of getting an organized list of potential investors. I think what was really helpful also was, the different competitions and accelerators that we've applied to, like Activate, for example, where we, in the application process and also after you get into the program, there are lots of opportunities to meet different investors. So our lead investors, the first time we met them, I think it was a connection through Activate. So that's that's how we met the lead investors, and then we kept the conversation going there, and then we basically provided them some kind of plan for how we will spend the money and what we expect to be able to achieve before the money runs out. And so those conversations led to the investment. And I think being in Activate is also helpful because it's sort of to lots of investors, it's sort of like a third-party validation of the team and of the technology.
I know we had a question in the chat that Carla answered about the competitiveness, but I was wondering, Renee, if you could talk a little bit more about how you consider applications.
Sure. Yeah, so we have like a tiered process of how we go from the 10x number of applicants to the number of fellows that we end up having. So we initially do kind of a credibility stage where we see if the technology seems viable, to make sure that people aren't kind of promoting a time machine or something like that. And then we take that, pass it off to technical experts on the to get a sense of how they view the technology and the person, and whether the innovation seems to be impactful. And we make a cut after we take that information and talk as a selection committee together, about where we can combine the external advice, our understanding of the technology and of the market, and of the person. You'll see that there's a few different opportunities for people to talk about yourself and your level of grit. And from there, we start doing phone interviews, and there's this continuous process as we try to see how well of a fit it could be for the program, how well you would respond to our coaching and stuff like that. And hopefully that is what you were hoping for, Spencer.
Yeah, thank you. We have 5 more minutes, so I think if there aren't any more questions, it'd be great for our 4 fellows to talk through maybe what the most important thing they thought about the application was, or any advice for everyone here. Oh, sorry, Zuri, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to add to the questions that you were asking already. So the timeline for that that conversion is usually a few months. I know you guys mentioned it in what point, I think it was written down. If you could just speak to the timeline, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I can jump in on that one quickly. So our timeline, we have a finalist event that is a week-long event similar to a demo day of pitches that happens at the end of February, early March. And then it takes us about a month to confirm with our sponsors who it is that we want to select. So we get back to finalists in early April, letting them know that we want to move forward and accept you into the program. And then onboarding begins in May, and the official start date of the fellowship is June 1st of next year.
Thanks, Carla. Okay, the last 3 minutes. Yeah, any final pieces or words of advice on the application process or your own reflections on Activate from all of you? Carlos, if you want to get us started.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is, all of our technologies are amazing, but for them to thrive, right, there has to be a business model somewhere in there. And business models can come in many shapes and forms, but taking a good look at the technology and doing an analysis of the techno-economics just to see, right, what the value add is, and if there is, if a company based on your technology is financially feasible. And Activate has a great free resource on their website to kind of get the balls rolling on that, which I used for my application process or before applying, and for the finalist selection. I found it very, very helpful to really see how a fully formed company based on this would look. And I think that's what they're looking for during their process as well.
Floris?
I recently got a lot of questions regarding people asking me, should I really apply? And I think the biggest differentiator that Activate has shown for me is that while every other organization just like writes community on their wall, Activate lives community. And that comes with a responsibility, like in a good way, that if you're the person who wants to live community, you're exactly here. And it comes with some kind of a calmness that allows you to just like be in an environment that, gets you out of the Shark Tank that entrepreneurship can be sometimes.
Thanks, Floris. Holden?
I agree with everything that Floris and Carlos said. So the thing I like to say about Activate is that there are all these accelerators out there and all these programs, but when they're great, you work with them, but it always feels like they want something from you in the end. Like maybe they want to invest or some other reason. But Activate really just wants to help you as a person to develop personally, and also to develop your company. And so that's really amazing, I think. And the other thing I would say about the application is that Activate has an amazing website. If you go on their website, you go to the Learn tab, and then you can see Core and Techonomics. All that stuff is really helpful for writing your application and preparing for your interview. Especially, all the videos are amazing under Core, but then Amy Rose has this amazing video about defining and realizing your value proposition. And that was really helpful in preparing for the interview and basically knowing what else you need to know in addition to your technology in applying for Activate.
Thanks, Holden. Peter?
Yeah, so really quick, just reflecting on just the vast amount of stuff I've learned from Activate in the community over the last couple months, just makes me realize just, by that same logic, just how ignorant I was like a couple months ago about capitalism and business. And, I would just encourage everyone here to really take that leap and don't worry if you think you don't have those tools coming into it, like you will get that support to build those tools. So good luck, everybody. Go for it.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you all for joining. This was recorded, so we'll be able to send it out. You can always follow up with the Boston team if you'd like to learn more. If you're in the area and like to stop by, we'd be happy to host you and answer some questions. I do just want to plug that the New York recruitment webinar is happening right now. I've posted the Zoom link and the meeting ID and the passcode in the chat, and I'd encourage you to attend to hear more perspectives from fellows and learn more about a different community. Thank you all. Good luck with your applications.